What's going on? I got experimental with my hair and I'm actually really excited about it. It's sort of a workup, but I'm trying to get it to there. Oh my god, this line is terrible, girl. But it looks like I got much choice, so I'm just waiting for the look at my hair. I'm talking about vexillology, which is the study of flags, standards, and symbols, right? The argument I'm going to be making is that the Confederate flag represents something bad, and you don't really have any control over that. So you don't get to. The Confederate flag does have subjective perception, but the argument I'm making is that it's wildly irrelevant to the grander conversation. What's going on, Julian? To the grander conversation around how we should treat this flag, right? So I got into a conversation with a friend today. 'Twas neat, but it was about vexillology, flags in particular, and the Confederate flag, even with even more so detail. We were talking about there was a truck, right? And so on the truck there was the Confederate flag, the GLTBQ Gay Pride flag, and the QIA Pride flag, and the United States flag, right? So there are all these three flags now on the same truck. And my friend was like, I would fly those. I'm like, why? That doesn't even make any sense. Those cannot ideologically coexist. And I sort of explained why they couldn't coexist, because two of those entities, two of those agencies physically actively written the invalidity of one of the other ones, right? So the gay flag and the U.S. flag. Oh my God, how you doing, Mark? The gay flag and the U.S. flag both denounced the even existence or validity or normal practice of homosexuality, right? So they can't coexist ideologically and almost legally. The truth is in the documents. But we were having more so conversations around separating what the Confederate flag is, what it can be perceived as what it can perceive as, how it can be perceived versus what it is. Right now, those of us who understand how flags work, we know that the Confederate flag represented slavery. But isn't it also fair to suggest that the Confederacy, most people in the Confederacy ate apple pie? So you could make the same argument that apple pie could have been the purpose of the Confederacy. However, evidence, right, is the name of the game, right? So there's not a lot of evidence to suggest that pumpkin pie or apple pie is why the Confederacy existed or why they did the things that they did. And so the point I was arguing was not necessarily that there can't possibly be perceived opinions about a flag. My argument was that whatever those subjective opinions are, it's wildly objective to the grander discussion of what it is, right? So the argument was sort of made that, over time, the meaning of these flags can change. But we all know that's not how we do things like flags and standards. We take them at face value and we prescribe action to them based on their face value, right? So we don't, if you see a hammer and sickle over the White House, we don't keep it there until we find what its possible intrinsic meaning could possibly be, or we don't keep it there until its intrinsic meaning changes. We take it at face value, and it means what it is while it's there. So the Confederate flag stands for a lot of things, but one of the most prominent is slavery. And again, going back to this whole argument that you can make that the Confederacy was just as much about apple pie as it was about slavery, that's also not the mechanism in which we use to measure the standard success or benevolence of countries, of institutions like countries or geopolitics, right? The Russian government gave people water. How to wave back? It's okay, you don't have to wave back, baby. I actually don't think you can. I think you can just like and all that other stuff, like and share and all that jazz. But we know, the Russian government gave people water. However, we don't balance as a metric the fact that Russia gave water, or that Marxist-Leninist Russia gave people water as a metric for a standard of success or to prove benevolence, right? So it's wildly different. The same arguments are being made about the Confederacy. It's wildly disconcerting because, yes, in some respect, the Confederacy was all about small government and states' rights and liberties, and that's fine, but you go back to the apple pie thing. Who cares? We measure benevolence of establishments and institutions like countries based on their social implication, not their sort of macro individual sort of independent happenings. We base them on the largest pronounced social implications, right? So while you can say, sure, there was some talks of free speech, and while there was some talks of small government of the Confederacy, the overarching thing was the understanding and the universal notion that the protection of institution as slavery as an institution was on the forefront, so much so that it was mentioned in basically all the documents of secession and even some constitutions, that this is more a pronounced thing. However, there's little evidence to suggest that it's about something like peace. Even if it says things about peace, the Confederacy didn't even come around in a peaceful manner. The thing that they're advocating for, slavery, isn't inherently peaceful. So we know that's not the case. There's evidence to suggest that that's not why it's here. It has nothing to do with peace. And you can say, it represents his history or culture. No, it might represent culture, but not history. There's no evidence to support that that's in its founding. All flags in some way, shape, or form technically represent culture, but that's not the mechanism in which we use to judge their benevolence, right? The hammer and sickle represents a culture. The swastika represents a couple cultures. We just determined the social implication of the use of the swastika is how we're going to base its benevolence, and we judged it to be negative. Right, based on the egregious acts Nazi Germany did or the people who used it did. Now, the swastika has been around for a long time, and its perception of what it is has changed. However, that is, one, totally out of your control, and its subjective perception is wildly irrelevant to the general way we perceive something like a swastika, right? A person could find a swastika to be a symbol of peace. That's great. However, in reality, that's not what it is. You may feel like it's that, and you may perceive it as that, but that's not what it is. It's not that. It's very much tied to more so, and one can argue solely on its social implication, right? What's going on its social implication, right? So while you can say, oh yeah, the Confederate flag totally had these things, or the Confederacy had things like apple pie and baseball, there is no evidence to suggest that that at all was a tenet of the collective attitude of the Confederacy, right? And I hate to sound cold, but subjective opinions on things that are social constructs are wildly irrelevant, right? They're relevant to how we perceive them, in particular things like flags. We don't, again, I said it once, I'll say it again, we don't maintain flags based on their projected or subjectively perceived meaning, right? We will never fly the hammer and sickle over the White House because we have a collective understanding that it represents an overarching action by an institution that is based solely on its social implication. Again, Marxist-Leninist Russia gave people water. That's not the relevant factor in determining the benevolence of a place like Marxist-Leninist Russia. So they could have given water to everybody every day forever. It makes absolutely no difference in social perception on the benevolence of that country. That's not the metric by which we measure it, right? I appreciate you, Bradley. How you doing? That's not how we do that. It just isn't. So the Confederate flag represents something bad, whether you feel it does or not, or even if you don't represent that thing. It's just a fact. There's no evidence to suggest that that approaching things like a flag and judging its value based on purely subjective principle is either prudent or evolutionary. Imagine a world where if you see a flag that represents something like diving, and you could totally be able to disregard it simply because you may have some subjective view of what it may mean. Where you might see, the red diving symbol with a white diagonal stripe and think diving. Another person may look at that and think this is a Christmas flag. I can totally, fucking park a ship here or what, whatever, something ridiculous. We don't measure things in vexillology based on on possible subjective perception. These are social constructs. They're attached to a social value standard, so you have to look at them socially. You can't look at them subjectively because they're not subjective things. They're collective. They represent a collective ideology. Take the Constitution. A bunch of people wrote it, namely just rich white guys. They all basically had the same mindset, more or less, but whatever, I digress. You take the Constitution, right? You had, arguably, everyone who had a hand in writing the Constitution had a subjective opinion. However, that is not what's reflected in the Constitution. The thing that's reflected in the Constitution is the overarching collective opinion. So now when you look at something like the Constitution, or like an American flag, that intrinsically has a set of social values that is almost universally understood when presented to a person not in the realm of who created it. So no one will look at an American flag and think, gee, someone in America liked pizza, and they might feel that this flag represents the beauty of American food, therefore America is like pizza. That's not how we look at flags. We don't look at the hammer and sickle and think, oh, gee, the Russian government gave people water. That's not how we look, and it's damn sure not how we judge its value system. That's not how, or its values. That's not how we decide which countries are benevolent and which countries are not. And there's no evidence to suggest that is a way we should do that. The way we do it now is more or less prudent evolutionary. You see a flag, it activates a certain sociological response, and you react accordingly. Right? They use flags for things like diving, directing airplanes. It's imperative that a universal understanding of what this flag means at an airport to pilots, regardless of what they subjectively want it to mean or what they may be convinced it means, it is imperative that it has a universal meaning. The same goes for Confederate flags. It's important to know what the overarching social implications of the things that happened that flag is supposed to represent. It's important to understand and highlight that. So when you see it, it elicits a sociological response that may be prudent or evolutionary. I know by default that if I live in Mississippi and I walk up to a house with a Confederate flag, for my own personal welfare, I don't approach it. Because it has an overarching there's an overarching understanding of what it means. That house could easily, again, have apple pie and give me water. But those are irrelevant factors to what the sociological symbol behind that flag represents. So again, wrapping up my argument, I'm not making the argument at all that flags can't have subjective meaning. I'm not arguing that people can't come up with their own meanings for flags. I'm arguing that whatever your opinion on what a flag looks like is irrelevant to what it actually is. You may think it's a symbol of heritage and culture. That's great. There's no evidence that that's what it's for. And there's evidence to suggest that it's part of a culture, but that's not at all how we measure its level of benevolence, and it never should be. That's not how we determine if something's good or not, when it comes to flags in countries. We don't look at it based on a possible subjective opinion. We look at it at a hard, universal mantra and set of values that it carries and that it's said to represent. So that's all I want to talk about. It was an interesting conversation. I'll be talking about it again tomorrow on the phone with another guy, Justin, the actual guy I was talking to about flags. Wait, who is this? Someone jumped in and they look super nice. Burkle, how you doing, man? God, Hopkins. Anybody got any questions? Vexillology is a weird thing. It's sort of vexillology and epistemology, so I'm talking about flags, but I'm talking also about methodology to get to as close to objective truth as humanly possible, so that's what I'm trying to get to. Nice, Joey Burkle's here, and he's kind of awesome. He should do stuff with his face, because then he would get money for it. That's a firm belief. Gloria's also any questions, right? So basically I'm trying to make the argument that the Confederate flag is intrinsically bad and you can't do anything about that no matter what you think it is. No matter what your opinion of what the Confederate flag is, it doesn't change what it actually is in reality, in the only measurable way we have to determine benevolence for things like flags. Anybody got any questions? It's Vexillology. It's a little twisty. Oh, you. Don't worry about being late, man. I save all my lives to my wall so you can watch them. I appreciate it, actually. That's really heartwarming. Not heartwarming for selfish reasons, but I like that people are being presented with other arguments. It's always beneficial. My job is not to try to prove the thing that you believe in wrong or try to do this. It's to determine whether or not you have good or stable reasons for the things you believe, right? It's perfectly fine to believe. I like to go to this. So I've been flying for years, but takeoff always freaks me out. It just without fail, it always has. Now, whenever I experience turbulence during takeoff, it instantly pops in my head that this thing is going to slide backwards and we're going to die. Right? Now, that's a belief I hold. It's a perfectly fair belief. It's a fair belief because we're all aware that how gravity works. What's going on, Nathan? We're all aware how gravity works. We're aware that planes can fall out of skies. We know how gravity works. We know how physics works and all this other stuff. However, there is also evidence to suggest that I'm going to be fine, right? There are billions, thousands, trillions, of gillions of planes take off every single day without a hitch. There is more evidence to suggest that I'll probably be fine than there is to suggest that I'm going to die. I believe that I'm going to die, but I believe those things on terrible reasoning. There's no reason to suggest that. Well, that's a lie. There's reason to suggest I'm going to die. There's not enough reason to suggest that I'm going to die, given the statistical likelihood, right? Given that I'm more likely to not die than die, I believe that I'm going to die for bad reasons. So I make an effort to approach most things that way, right? So I'm not here to tell you what you believe is wrong, because it's not wrong to believe that I might die. That's fair. It could happen. However, it has certain implications on how you operate. And so it's important to try to believe as many true things as possible and as few false things as possible. The part of your hair is fine. Oh, thank you. I actually just got really experimental with my hair today. No bullshit. And I like it. This was the first non-military haircut I've had since being out of the military. So basically the first non-military haircut I've had in 10 years. And I thought I'd do something wildly different. It actually isn't done. I want the top to be a lot taller because I'm doing something different with it. But I was told to grow out my facial hair too. So I'm just like, oh my God, this is why I hate up angle photos. Like, that looks so much worse than that. Oh my God, I just got how to selfie. I'm so smart. Anything else anybody want to talk about? Anything interesting you heard on your wall that's dumb? I get a lot of shit like that. Anything someone said to you that's dumb, political or religious speaking. So I get a lot of those. Victoria, anything you guys have questions about? Welfare, healthcare, socialism. Well, what's up? What do we want to talk about? Oh my God, whose picture is this? Fucking Victoria, that picture is hilarious. That's ridiculous. Aw, thank you, baby. That part, though, shucks, you guys, stop. I'm blushing. You can't even tell, but I'm doing it. Let's talk. Anybody want to come on live, and chat about something interesting, something peculiar? I'm down like clown on Graham. Holy shit, it's Devin. Devin, you need to move to Seattle. Just do that. Just move to Seattle. It's kind of wonderful. Miss Devin. Devin's cool, and he has really awesome parents who do really awesome things. So, yeah. Oh, well, bye, Devin. I want to see you anyway. I'm probably gonna get stoned, but I will stay on live if anyone wants to ask questions. I ask that you guys share this if you can to your folk so they can engage, because I feel super vindicated, by the way, because I was always that kid who was really into politics, and I was made fun of a lot for it. I was like, you're that annoying fucker who's always into politics. But now shit is so fucked up. Everyone's into politics. Everybody. And we kids over here who was political the whole time are looking like, oh, look who just joined the party. Like, look who just busted up in here. Welcome. We've been here for years. Like, dude, what the fuck? I have a receding hairline. Oh, I miss you, man. Take care. You too, man. You don't have a receding hairline. Shut your face. You're hot. Love you, Vittorio. Any of you guys got any questions and stuff? Because I'm about to hop off here and smoke. But if you have any questions, send them here. If not, send them later, and I'll call you or go live about them or whatever. But share if you can. It'd be really, really appreciated, actually. Oh, you're drunk? See, I drank a tad bit earlier. I had one drink, and now I'm gonna get really high, like super dupe high. It's gonna be great. Oh, wait, I have 6 people. No bullshit. I know I probably shouldn't be too proud of this, but that's the most people I've ever had watching me at once. So I'm actually kind of happy. You guys, please share. Conversation's good. Responsible platforming is good. There's a way to bring up the topic. I don't believe there's no discussion not worth having. There's a way to bring up the topic without necessarily glorifying the message, and that way is called epistemology. And you will find that if you challenge the things not that you believe, but the reasons you believe them, it goes a long way. This presidential candidate proposing $1,000 a month to every resident over 18, good or bad choice? Think it will stimulate the economy? So Joey, that's interesting. Okay, so that I think I love your life. Aw, thanks, Gloria. I love your face and your life. I love you in my life. Oh, you join my live stream on YouTube? Badass. Okay, I'll do that. God, I miss weed. You can do weed. I get to believe. So that's interesting, right? So we're talking about the universal income, right? So a few countries have tried it. A few have failed. I think Denmark still kind of does it or whatever. But this is demonstrable, right? So the question is, does this thing work? Is it good or bad for the economy? And the answer is that depends more or less on what the economy is doing, right? So the economy is not an entity or agency. It's just a bunch of people doing shit with money. So we've tested this before. This is demonstrable, right? If you were, I don't know if we're the same age or not, but if you can recall, when I was younger anyway, President Bush sent out these things called economic stimulus checks during the recession, right? The goal was to get people spending in order to drive the economy, right? You get people spending, the demand is increased, jobs, etc., blah, blah, blah. That's the mantra. However, what he failed to realize is what a recession is. A recession is not the lack of money, it's people not spending money because of some sort of economic insecurity, right? They've seen something on TV that spooked them, so they won't spend money, or something like, I don't know, a housing bubble kept people from spending money. So a lot of people didn't have money, for sure. But it was driven by people having money who just weren't spending it, right? And so when you're not spending money, it's a regress in the demand, and then layoffs, and then no one has any money, and the cycle continues. So he tried to remedy this by sending everyone money. Well, again, the problem was they didn't have any money. The problem was they weren't spending it. And so what happened was all of those things went swoop right into a bank account, into a savings account, and then nothing happened. However, Alaska has had a universal income since 1970 something. It is a guaranteed amount of money to every resident above adult age who live in the state, and it works perfectly fine. Additionally, I think things like universal incomes are going to become inevitable. The more things are automated, the less there will soon be more people than there will be jobs. So universal income is inevitable. It's going to have to happen because there's going to just be way too much automation to support people having jobs and doing things, right? So do I think it's a good idea? Yes, actually. There's another reason why I think it's good, because it's been demonstrated that it curbs crime. Who do I got on here? Oh, I got Johnston. Johnston, you would be cool to talk with, because I know you're fairly conservative. Nicholas, I love you. You're so awesome. Colin is my bud/brother. I love that dude. So the questions were, is it a good or bad choice? I'm always for tools used to close the gap in equality. So I'm always about it. This has been demonstrated to curb a lot of things like petty crime, but mostly because petty crime is performed to meet some sort of financial or economic need or perceived economic need, i.e. you steal a purse to buy something that you need. However, there's things like white collar crime, which are totally unnecessary. You do not need to have a casino. It's not intrinsic in human survival or even social retrospection. So you don't need a casino to maneuver more or less decently in life, right? I have an apartment with a dog. I get to live indoors and I wear clothes, so I get to enjoy certain perks of living in a society that finds value in those things. However, it can help, but it doesn't significantly reduce the quality of my life if I don't have a casino. However, that is the case with certain things like shoes and pants and water. And then if you're talking about addiction, that's a whole nother something. That's something that you can't control. It's out of your control. Therefore, I don't really get included in the equation. But is it a good idea for anyone over 18? Yeah, it's a good or bad choice, but it mostly depends on what the economy is currently doing. So because we're in a high spend economy, I think it'd be awesome. It would do nothing but drive the economy, but temporarily. Because that's just what the nature of economies doing things are. We're not in a recession. We're in a part of the economy where everyone's buying everything in the world for every fucking reason. Part of that reason is because it's easy as fuck to buy every fucking thing in the world for every fucking reason. Apple comes out with a new iPhone like every fucking 3 months, and people can buy them. So I think right now it would be awesome. It would do nothing but drive the economy. You might see some freeing up of a lot of capital that are spent for certain other things. Good take on it. Love it. I'll hop back on when you start your live stream again and see if I can bring up any more questions. I always have questions. Just never think about it until you sign off. Oh, okay. So even if I sign off, just send them to me, man. I'll either address them on another live or I'll address them to you and comment, or I can call you personally. It doesn't matter. I have no problem doing that either. Ben is awesome. Yeah, and this goes for any of you guys. If you think of questions, please, by all means, send them to me whenever, however, and how frequently you want to. Because I like talking about this stuff, and I don't think enough of this messages like these are spread. I think there's a lot of engaging and irresponsible platforming, and so this is my way of sort of curving that. Anybody else got any questions or what's going on? Anything you want to talk about? Rape culture, which is totally a thing. Toxic masculinity, which is absolutely a thing, and I can demonstrate it to you. You want to talk about why there's black student unions and no white student unions. You want to talk about... Oh, we did this weird thing at a church... not church, Jesus, Mary and Joseph. At a work retreat about transraciality and whether or not it's true. It can be a thing. So that was fun. So if anyone wants to hear about that, I don't know if y'all want to hear about stuff. Also, if you want to come on live, just send me a request, and let's face it, I'll 100% accept it. There's only 5 people watching. I'm not insanely popular. So I will absolutely accept it. Who is this person with the multiple... Oh, it's Jackie. Hi, Jackie. Love you. Oh, I got some, like, celebrities, man. I got Colin. I still got Burkle. I got Gloria. Man, I feel in the love right now. I got Jackie. What is your opinion on that? On what in particular? Oh, you. What is my opinion on what? Oh, transracial. So yeah, the thing was, it's called Four Corners, and you put strongly agree, strongly disagree, whatever, in these corners of the room, and someone says something, and then you walk to wherever part. What's going on, Bard? How you doing, Papa? Bard is awesome. It goes, whoa, 8 people. Oh my God. Okay, so I don't know if you guys are sharing, but if you are, fucking awesome. Thank you. I have 8 people, which I shouldn't be excited about, but I totally am. It's so neat. I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so by the strictest legal definition and understanding of what race is, and that is a social construct, you absolutely can. However, words have both definitions and usages, right? So while you may... Josh, a fucking Bard. I love you, man. You're awesome. Anyway, so given that race is merely a social construct, it's the assigning of a phenomena of the darkening of a skin that's not even 500 years old, people. Whenever someone tells me that racism will be here forever, they're completely dismissing the fact that it hasn't even been here forever, and it's a concept that's less than 500 years old. It was invented. It can't possibly be here forever because it wasn't here forever. There's nothing intrinsic about titling skin tones. It's a relatively new concept. Anyway, if I accept just that, then yes. But again, race sort of ties back into flags, right? Can you technically be transracial? Sure. Race is a social construct. If you were born in this country but have skin like mine and eyes like mine, you will be perceived as black. So in that instance, yes, you can be transracial. However, here's where it separates. You have no control over how you're perceived. You can't just decide to be black, because sure, you might feel black and you might say I'm black, but again, race is a social construct. It's created by a universal understanding of a something. So your subjective understanding of a something is wildly irrelevant to the outcome, right? Oh, Bard, is wildly irrelevant to the outcome, right? So I can say right now that I'm Asian, right? I can go outside and I can tell everyone in the world that I'm Asian and do Asian-y things. But am I? Is that something I factually am? And am I just because I say I am? The answer is no. Race is a social construct, so its only implications that are relevant are social implications. And society would say, you're not Asian. That's not how we perceive you. We have a collective understanding of what Asian looks like. Therefore, you can't be that. Even if you say you're that, even if you want to be that, that's not where it comes from. Can you claim to be a race from ancestors compared to your outside skin? Like black ancestors and the white guy today claiming his ancestors. Oh, so you're asking me, so if someone is perceived as white now and they had a black ancestor, can they still claim that? Absolutely. But again, that's not how we determine what race is. It's a social construction, therefore is only subject to social determination, right? So you may have a black ancestor, chill. If you don't look like what we understand to be black, you are not black and you have no control over that. I know it sounds really, really cold and really, really unfortunate, but it's the case, right? One of the biggest issues we're having with transgender folk, for example, is something like that, except for people have found sort of they were digging and found a comfortable place in which to stop. But in transgender folk, the problem is that people aren't believing the things that they say they are, despite the fact there's sufficient evidence to support that's what they actually are, right? Gender, bam, social construct, right? So there's no intrinsic way to express it, right? It's something we assign to a phenomenon, right? I have a penis, I'm gonna call that thing man. Do you agree race shouldn't exist? That's difficult. Okay, so do I think race shouldn't exist? No. And the reason for that is because it already has so much implication, it's basically an objective truth. Now, I would find better reason for justifying getting rid of race if we get to a point where there's not so much tied into it. But because there's so much tied into it, it's almost a sociological necessity. So that would just more or less depend on what stage we are in the development and our understanding of things like race and other social constructs, right? I feel like I can't say now I'd be comfortable with getting rid of race, because the biases that exist intrinsically of judging people or categorizing people based on their skin tone would still exist. So even if you stopped calling that black, you would still treat it as othering, as if it were black, and that has real world implications that you can only address with a name, right? So now, does it have to? No, absolutely not. I think I don't necessarily think race distinction is bad. I think it's useless. It doesn't have a use. There's nothing you can do with race that you can't do without race intrinsically. However, that's not the reality. The reality is race has very serious implications. Therefore, it is imperative that it's used in conversations and things that circle around it, right? So that's, do I agree it shouldn't exist? Not necessarily, but only because of the time I live in and the collective understanding of race. I like other races because it makes everyone unique in a good way and explore a culture other than your own. Now, see, that's true, Colin. However, you're confusing two different terms, right? So race and culture are different. Whenever someone tells me, I can't be racist or whatever because I've lived this, you can absolutely experience black culture and you can be trans culture for sure. However, culture falls secondary and is a package that comes with the overarching othering that is race, right? We often assign race with culture. That's like the whole driving force behind stereotypes. But, oh, thank you, Jackie. I appreciate it. That's like the whole driving force behind stereotypes. But, wait, I feel you. I believe in terms of bias, it shouldn't, at the very least. Absolutely. I would be all for getting rid of race if I knew that nothing that pertains to my well-being is attached to it. But because it is, I can't justify Xing it out entirely. Breach Daddy, I love how you're explaining your options so well to actually understand what you're saying. Oh, well, thank you very much, Jackie. I appreciate it. To be honest, I'm getting a lot farther than I thought I would. But yeah, to answer your question, no, I don't think race should go away. Oh yeah, so race and culture, that's what I was talking about. So you can absolutely be transcultural, right? So you can absolutely, if I move from the United States to northern Siberia and I live there for the rest of my life, I will adopt that culture. One of the things we were actually talking about is in the Black Student Union was African culture and can I necessarily embrace it? And the answer is to a certain extent no, because there's a lot of things that are intrinsic in the current reality of African culture that I can't co-sign, one of which is severe misogyny and hyper-religiosity. I can't assign to those. As much that exists independent of what I would like African culture to be, but that's not what it is, right? So yeah, in a lot of ways I do, but in a lot of ways I can't get behind some of the more prominent parts of African culture, right? Don't do it. What shouldn't I do, Bard? So culture and race are different, right? You can be transcultural, you can move cultures, but race is very different. There can be a bunch of races within a culture. However, the social outlook is that we often assign culture to race, right? So there's certain cultural practice that are assigned intrinsically to race, even though they're not. Actually, a friend of mine was talking about, he goes, now I walk up and I see a beautiful girl, or I see a girl or whatever, and I go to talk to her, but she's wearing Nikes. And so I feel like the perceived benefit is not worth the effort of blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, that's fair that that's your perception. However, are shoes really a stable enough reason to denounce the possibility of walking up to somebody, right? So I could see, and there's nothing intrinsically wrong with what he's doing. We all do it. We sort of judge things based on their appearance, right? Leave America. We can't afford to lose good people with common sense. Wait, what do you mean? Oh, don't do. Oh, I'm not leaving America, man. I'm staying here. No. This, contrary to popular belief, I adore America. I do. Not necessarily its institution, but as a topographically diverse bioregion, I love America. I hate when people get all uppity about how, oh, we're in Europe and we can fly from the beaches of Spain to the Alps in this amount of time and we don't even need a passport. I can do the same thing, asshat, except for I can fly literally from the Caribbean and Florida to actual Alaska 500 miles above the Arctic Circle in the same country. I can do that. That's a thing I can do. No, I know. No, I know it was a joke. I just still like to bring it up because I really do love America. It's awesome. I got tropical beaches. I got tundra. I got fucking grasslands, which yay. But I got a lot of shit here that I really like. So I'm not going nowhere, dog. We common sense folks gonna be here because America is far too precious to be left in the hands of people who aren't going to take care of it properly, people or the landscape. So that's what that is. Damn it, I lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? Race and culture. Yep, they're different things. You can like races, but not like a culture. I like other races because it makes everyone unique in a good way. And explores cultures other than your own in certain cases. That is absolutely true. And so race is tied to things like that. That's why it can necessarily justify striking it out entirely. Now, if we can enjoy if we can enjoy uniqueness and explore other cultures without othering people merely based on how much pigmentation is in their skin, that would be an even more desirable society, right? There's plenty of uniqueness in the world without skin tone being one of them. Fuck. You ever watch a snowboarder? When I snowboarded, it's literally 3 hours of falling in different directions. But there are people who can snowboard like they're fucking walking. It's thoroughly impressive. That is a significant better othering standard than the skin tone, right? Unfortunately, we have a lot of institutions that don't particularly see it that way. Regardless of who you are, what your possibilities are, we've created these social organizations to use that as an othering factor. Sorry, my arm was really tired doing that. I have not folded my laundry. That's what that is. I'm totally open and transparent. Don't give a damn. I'm a human person who is not famous. So that's what that is. Yeah, what is your opinion on black people in the military? Should we continue to serve even though there appears to be war against us here? First of all, I don't think literally anybody should serve in the military. If I'm being 1,000%, I don't think anybody should serve in the military. I think they need to find a way to automate the military as quick as possible because, to be frank, I'm tired of seeing not just black people, but poor people being used as cannon fodder to fight wars for rich people. One of the most infuriating things in the world, I'll never forget it, is when I was on the USS Nimitz. I spent 5 years in the Navy. And when I was on the Nimitz, we were one of the first West Coast ships to go through the Suez Canal into East Coast territory, into Eastern Navy's territory in a very long time. And so we went there, we went through the Suez Canal, we went to the Mediterranean, and we eventually pulled into Italy. 'Twas awesome. I complain to you not about what we did. However, at some point, our executive officer got on the intercom and told us, and I'm not sure if he was being colloquial or whatever, or what have you, but he told us that we had to go through there to keep shipping lanes open. A multi-billion-dollar nuclear-powered warship was sent to a place to make sure Toshiba can get their TVs to Phoenix, Arizona in an efficient manner. I am so tired of people going into poor schools, poor colleges, finding the most vulnerable people in our community to convince them, hey, we made your economic situation shitty enough to where we're absolutely willing to break parts of you for money so we can keep shipping lanes open. Go f*** yourself. So do I think black people should join the military? No. I don't think anybody but rich people should join the current state of the military because the military does absolutely nothing for poor people. It does not help us in any way, shape, or form unless you're trying to buy a really cheap television. Then the Navy might have a hand in making sure that's a possibility. Outside of that, absolutely goddamn not. Now, again, that is independent. I am proud of the people who do. Not all of them, because I've served with half of them as those insufferable jackasses, but damn it, I'm proud of that they did it. They did it, and it was something, and it was a jobs program, and I will always admire anyone who can sustain through any kind of hard work, especially the military, because it's absolute torture. Do I think people should do it? No. I think only rich people and people who have a direct hand in this benefit should join the military, i.e. Dick Cheney and all of his children. I think they should join the military. I don't think poor people, working class people shouldn't join the military whatsoever. However, again, I live in reality, right? We got to eat. We got to do these things. We as Americans who live in the system we live in will do a lot of fucked up shit just to do a lot of simple things. You're right. Rich people as in wealthy people, right? People with the social power, right? Punching me in the face has a different result from you than punching Donald Trump in the face even before he was president. There's a different implication, right? Rich people, I mean people with socioeconomic power, right? People with socioeconomic authority who have larger control of their own homeostasis, right? There's a lot of things I do that are out of my control. I live in an apartment that's supposed to be to a certain standard because otherwise I can't maneuver through society comfortably, and that could affect my ability to survive. So, but in order to do that, I accept a lot of ridiculous fees, like a $300 parking fee, despite the fact that I don't have a car. Things of that sort. So when I say the rich, I mean people in socioeconomic power, and there's rich people, there's politicians, celebrities, etc. They should go because those are the people who the military is most direct benefiting. And sure, you could say, but the military hires people and gives them a job. What if, now hear me out, what if you could have a jobs program without being cannon fodder? So the answer, no. I don't think black people should join the military. I don't think working class people, period, should join the military. But they do, and for that, I thank them. That's about where I am with that. Yeah. You know that song, what is it? Fortunate Son. Basically accurately describes how I feel about people joining the military. Some folks are born, made to raise the flag. Ooh, you know, we're going to play that shit right now because I like that song. That's about how more or less I feel about the working class joining the military. I think Creedence Clearwater Redemption hit the nail on the head when they talked about what the military-industrial complex looks like and why it exists. And that it is just, it's just brilliant. I'm going to play it after this ridiculous fuck-ass commercial. This is how I feel about working class folk joining the military. Also, my favorite genre of stuff is old war shit, like Vietnam and World War II. So I watch a lot of this stuff, so don't judge. Some folks are born made to raise the flag. Ooh, red, white, and blue. Platoon is one of my favorite movies, dude. No bullshit, it's one of my favorite movies. Like, I love that movie. I've seen it like 6.2 billion times, dude. That's my movie. That line, right there, where was it? That line is exactly how I feel about the working class joining the military. Let me get this shit right, too. Some folks are born silver spoon in hand. They learned how to help themselves. But when the tax man calls to the dogs, y'all are in the house like a rummage sale. That's how I feel about working class people joining the military. You want us to put our lives on the line for this thing to sustain you. You do it. You go have at it. That's how I feel about that. That line in the song is perfect to how I feel. I love Platoon. I also love this song, and I love my boyfriend Lyman, who's dropping hella hearts right now. It is a great movie, Colin. You know what, dude? Okay, Bard. At some point, get your ass to Seattle. Colin, you get your ass to Seattle. And let's just do a fucking old war movie day for sure. Because I still like old war shit. I don't know why. It just makes for good. It's really interesting. Like, I don't know. It's really, really interesting. Also, fun message to libertarians. Because I've been having this severe problem with libertarianism lately. It's mostly because I don't believe it's an actual thing. I don't buy pseudo-political objectivity. People have their biases and this sort of feigning, I'm going to pretend to be objective. Both parties suck. Now let me tell you all about the Democrats. I don't buy it for a fucking instant, right? I don't buy this political objectivity. So, really quick, Saving Private Ryan. Bruh, it's my fucking movie. Oh, Full Metal Jacket. Oh my god, the whole series of fucking Pacific? Oh, that's my bae. I've read that book and seen that movie like 8 times. Or seen the TV show like 8 times. So conservatives or libertarians like to cite shit like this and think, see, government's bad. Well, no, some things that the government does is bad. It's sort of the same when people tell me, Christians do good things. Well, yes, that doesn't make the Catholic Church a good organization. That just means some people in the Catholic Church do good things, or some people who happen to be Catholic also do good things. But they're not necessarily intrinsic. So, for example, you can have a government that doesn't do this, right? Because for every time you show me something bad the government does, I will show you something like the National Park Service, or the fact I can get a letter to Barrow, Alaska, which is 594 miles above the Arctic Circle, for fucking 49 cents, a place even Amazon won't deliver. I can do that. You have the Pacific. I'm so jelly. Okay, you have to bring it over so we can watch it. Does the government do some abhorrent shit? Absolutely. But given the nature of what it's designed to do and what it does, and the fact that governments and hierarchies are intrinsic in human development, they're going to form no matter what you do. It's more worth it to try to reform it than to completely get rid of it or even shrink it. The shrinking of a hierarchy or social institution makes no sense as a society in which it's supposed to be managing is growing. You can't have something have less influence over something that's increasing within the scope of influence, right? That's like filling a cup up from the bottom that's just ever filling up and never trying to get it into a bigger container. You're just gonna let it run over and fuck over you try to reform it and contain it the best way you can. Government is why we are so successful, but government is why we continue to fall apart. Absolutely. It does both those things. But given the nature of what it does, it's worth to try to keep and reform than try to get rid of or shrink. Thoughts on Prince William and Harry joining the Royal Military? Them coming from a high-class family and joining the military. I know it's not related to you. No, okay, so we were all in the Navy, right? We know how officers work. Don't get me wrong, I think it's adorbs that they had to serve in the military. I think it's even adorable they got to shoot something. However, there's a difference between why someone like me, Colin, and Barr joined the military and why Prince William and Harry did. One, it's obligatory. They didn't really have a choice. They had to join. The Queen was in the military too. You have to have served in the military to be a royal. You can't be a royal without having served in the military. So it could have been for totally selfish reasons, right? They could have been, well, I want to be king, so I have to join the military. But I don't like to believe those guys are that cynical, so maybe they did it, out of some level of service. But again, we also, it is a well understanding they couldn't have, by law, possibly have had the same or equitable treatment if someone else who came into the military not related to the objective ruler of their country, right? We know what kind of privileges are placed in people who simply have bachelor's degrees in the military. We know what kind of value is placed in people who come in the military with slightly bigger arms than other people. You can only imagine the level of privilege that exists for someone whose family is literally tied to the person who owns the military, right? It is a wildly different experience. Their grandmother owns the thing that they had to serve in. So it's gonna be a different experience, right? I appreciate that they did it, but it is obligatory, and it is wildly different from what service looks like for most people. Celebrities also go to jail too, but it's, yeah, sure, justice was served a little bit, thanks, but, was it really, Martha Stewart had like a whole fucking awesome setup in her. So did she technically go to jail? Yes. Is that how we determine value of justice? Yes. Was it really to the standard in which we normally measure value and justice? Absolutely not. And the same goes for William and Harry's military service. Did they serve? Yes. Is it good that they served? Yes. Did they have the same sort of plight and implications as others who served? Absolutely not. That's where I am. So, Yeah, I'm gonna go live again, guys. I'm gonna get really stoned and probably start dinner because boyfriend gets home like 45 minutes, and I haven't cleaned. I haven't put the clothes away yet, so I'm gonna do that. And peace until tomorrow or the next day, namely Friday. Love you guys. Thanks for sharing and thanks for watching. Love this. I'll be on the next one, but I have to get some sleep. Yeah, nothing but love, man. Get some. All of you guys, please get some sleep. You will see me Wednesday. Yes, Colin, I appreciate you 1,000%. You will absolutely see me Wednesday, and I can't wait to have dinner with you guys. Bye.